This week in Texas, we have a conversation with Governor Greg Abbott at the start of early voting.
We need to show enthusiasm in the party. The people who go vote early and as well as on primary election day are far more likely to be voting in November.
He talks about his efforts in Harris County and offers his thoughts about the state of grade school education. Also, we talk with Congressman Dan Crenshaw as he seeks the 5th term in office, and State Representative Steve Toth, who's hoping to best the incumbent in that GOP primary. Plus, a report from 13 Investigates and Micah Hatfield about Medicare charges for health care 2 local men say they never received. This week in Texas. Hello again, I'm Tom Abrams. We do begin this week in Texas with our conversation with Governor Greg Abbott, who was in Harris County on February 17th, the first day of early voting.
So Harris County, obviously the largest county in the state of Texas, and it's going to have the largest voter turnout. And we want to make sure we win Harris County this election year. We know the undercurrents of the county are going toward the Republican side, and that's because of all the craziness of the policies from people like Lena Hidalgo, these socialist judges who let murderers out back on the streets. We picked up 10 seats in the last election. We know that the opportunity is there. We have to invest the capital, invest the time and effort. We have very proven tactics to get the voters to turn out and vote. We think we have a great opportunity to win Harris County.
You're upping the staffing in the county and the investment. Tell me about those numbers.
So we have team captains in every Texas House district in Harris County. I think there's 24 of them. Those team captains will build support teams under them all the way down to the precinct level. They'll be identifying all the Republicans in all those precincts and work on turning them out. There's some more details about how we do that. We're not going to give you our secret sauce right now, but we will have the personnel as well as the advertising investment, especially digitally, to make sure we connect with the voters we need to turn out. And I think that we're going to be able to get the voters we need to have a clean sweep in Harris County.
Is 25 million the number, or is it potentially higher than that?
You're talking about the dollar number?
Yeah.
Listen, we don't come in with any set amount. We do come in, however, with the flexibility to make sure we're going to be able to have the ground operation, the advertising operation, the turnout operation needed to make sure that we win Harris County.
Let's talk about early voting. Tell me about the importance of people voting now.
Early voting really is very important. We need to show enthusiasm in the party. The people who go vote early and as well as on primary election day are far more likely to be voting in November. But one thing we all like to do, we like to what we call bank our votes early, which is the importance of getting those votes cast. You never know what's going to be happening, say on election day or something that could happen close to election day. We want to make sure that there's no excuses, that everyone takes the opportunity at this time on the first day or second day of early voting, go cast your vote, get it done, so you know that your vote is banked.
The state of Texas under your leadership has been pretty aggressive in terms of addressing the security at the ballot box. How confident should voters be, whether they're voting Democrat or Republican, that their vote is going to count and that the results will be accurate?
So the voter confidence that you make reference to is really one of the top goals we're seeking to achieve. It's synonymous with the integrity of the ballot box. People need to have trust and confidence in the election system. And when people see these stories about illegal votes being cast and other irregularities, it erodes that trust and confidence. That said, because of laws that we have passed over the past several sessions, there is greater integrity in the election system, greater certainty that there will be no cheating at the ballot box, and hence it will promote greater trust and confidence in elections.
All right, 2 questions about schools. One is about the Attorney General's investigation into protests or walkouts at campuses. Your thoughts about both the walkouts and the Attorney General getting involved?
Well, so the Attorney General is involved, and the Commissioner for Education, Mike Morath, is involved separately in investigations about that also. And they're looking at it. There's several things that need to be looked at. One, to what extent were educators, whether they be teachers or administrators or others, to what extent were they involved in this process? There have been reports from the National Teachers Association and Union that they were talking about this and organizing this this going back to last year. We need to investigate that and see what the teacher unions were doing to promote this disruption of kids not being in the classroom, not being where they should be learning. And so that'll be part of what we're looking at. Second, if a child wants to protest, they have certain rights to be involved in that protest. However, it would be inappropriate and maybe a violation of the Code of Ethics and Responsibilities of Teachers for them to assist or aid or abet with a child leaving a school during the school day. Another thing that the Education Commissioner is looking at, and that is for students who are leaving school for the purpose of protesting during the course of a school day when they should be learning in the classroom. These schools, they get paid on the average daily attendance of those students, and what the Education Commissioner is looking at is maybe not allowing those schools to be paid for those days for the students who were absent without approval.
So last question, and this is about HISD. After initially saying that there wouldn't be any school closures, last week they announced there would be 12 school closures. Does that concern you that the state's largest district is losing so many students that they have to close campuses?
Well, you got to go back to something that's been going on for well over a decade, and that is there have been school closures across the entire state of Texas for more than 10 years, and there's, for one, a demographic reason for that, and that is the birth rate is declining, and so there's not that many kids coming up into the schools, into the classrooms, and as a result, we've overbuilt schools, and we don't need that many schools for the student body that we have. Second, because of skyrocketing property taxes in places like Harris County, like Travis County, et cetera, you're finding that parents with kids, they can't afford to live in the high-cost area of Harris County, and they're moving to the suburbs and going to schools there. So there are other dynamics at play that deal with reasons why schools are losing students, and when schools lose students, it's very inefficient for them to maintain the same number of school openings.
Last question, and that is, with those closures and then the advent of vouchers in Texas, what concern, if any, do you have about the erosion of public education in Texas for children K through 12?
Well, we made an investment to ensure there would not be an erosion of public education in the state of Texas. We provided a record amount of funding for public education last year, $8 billion, a record amount of funding for teacher pay raises to attract and retain the best teachers of more than $4 billion. And we implemented the curriculum reforms that will lead to better products. My goal as governor is to make sure that Texas ranks #1 for educating our kids. Part of that is school choice. Part of it is investing in the schools the way we have. Part of it is attracting and keeping the best teachers. And part of it is the curriculum reforms that are needed to make sure we're teaching our kids in a way that will truly advance them and improve their skill sets in reading and math.
When we come back, the race for Congressional District 2. Now to the race for Congressional District 2 in parts of Montgomery and Harris County. We speak first with the incumbent, Congressman Dan Crenshaw.
I promised that we would secure the border, go after the cartels, secure funding for flood mitigation projects. That was, my district, at least the original district I ran in, was probably the worst hit from Harvey. And, I still represent the Lake Houston area, East Montgomery County area. These flooding matters a lot to these people. And we've been very successful on that front. We've brought about $200 million or so over the last 7 years to the district for flood mitigation projects. 98 million of that is direct earmarks that I've made happen from the appropriations process. There's still more work to do. And there's a lot more work to do on the cartels. President Trump took office. We feel like we secured the border, but we need to codify a lot of those measures that have been put in place. And we need a strategic plan to go after the cartels. I'm the only one in Congress who's even bothered to do the research and ask the questions and take the trips down to Mexico and figure out what that plan looks like so that we can support the administration's efforts. And, again, still a lot of work to do. On the energy front, this is a petrochemical, oil and gas district, And my work on energy and commerce matters quite a bit to that, whether it's permitting processes, making sure that we can export our LNG. It gets into critical mineral mining as well. There's a lot of good work that we've been doing, and that needs to continue to happen. And if voters want to elect somebody who has a history of voting no on everything, we're talking about Steve Toth. He votes no on simple things like armoring police cars, but he's also voted against the budget for Texas DPS and the National Guard. So how can he be saying he's for border security? He's got a long list of really bad. He's voted against many measures for flood mitigation in the district that he wants to represent. And so you've got, on the one hand, somebody who just spreads a bunch of lies about me, and the internet loves to eat that up, as we've noticed. That's been going on for years. But they never say what they want to do, and that should be a problem for voters. Voters should look to a candidate and say, well, what do you want to do exactly? Like, what policies do you care about? And I've always been a policy guy. It's not always the flashy stuff that gets a lot of clicks, but that's the hard work that actually matters in people's lives.
Are you surprised that he's running against you, given that he used to be a supporter?
No. This guy's run against Kevin Brady's run against Brandon Crichton. He's always running against somebody, trying to get his name out there. But again, why? To get his name on a door. That's it. Doesn't want to do anything. He doesn't do anything in the Texas State House. This is a guy who's gotten 0 bills passed in the last legislative session. 0 bills passed. And you compare that with other representatives in the area, they get dozens passed. It's very normal. It's easy in the Texas legislature to get bills passed. You've got a supermajority. And so if you can't get anything passed, so I've gotten more bills passed in this last session in an environment where it's way harder to get anything passed than he did. I mean, at 0, people need to know that kind of stuff. This is not a serious person. And they think it was there's a bunch of them obviously in the race. They think it was their time because, but it's trendy these days to come after Dan Crenshaw. Nobody knows why. Like, you ask people, they don't really have a good reason. There's no policy, there's no vote. It's either a lie that's been told about me that they're centered on, or just some narrative. And I encourage people to look into those and fact check them, because they're the lies they put out about me are just not true.
Anything else you'd like to add about the campaign and your reelection bid?
Look, I mean, just what I said before, this re-election's about getting things done. It's about results. It's not about trendy narratives online that aren't even true. And the last thing the 2nd District needs is to start over with the junior member who doesn't have the right committees, doesn't have the right sway, and really has no intention of governing, because he's already proven that in the State House, passing 0 bills. So, and voting against the interests of his own district. Geez, I forgot the other big one. Voted against the measures to reduce property taxes. Voted with Democrats to do that. I mean, find me some Texans who want their property taxes to increase. You're going to have a hard time. So look, this really is about actual results and actual adherence to the conservative philosophical grounding and policies that work for you, and working on those policies, doing the work instead of just the rhetoric. And that's why I'm asking for people's vote again on March 3rd.
When we come back, a conversation with Steve Toth. Welcome back. Now the primary challenger in the race for the GOP nomination in Congressional District 2, State Representative Steve Toth. I asked him why he's running against Dan Crenshaw.
I was a big supporter of Dan Crenshaw, as many people have been in the past, from Michael Berry to most of the grassroots organizations across the state of Texas. But I think what pushed me over the edge was January 2024. He held a town hall for elected officials at the Black Walnut, and he was talking about his support for this bipartisan Senate deal that allowed 5,000 people into the country a day. Illegal immigration is breaking Texas. The federal government is not helping us out in any way, shape, or form. 53% of babies born in the state of Texas are Medicaid births. It's not sustainable. And so myself and Senator Creighton challenged him on it and said, Dan, this is a bad bill. You got to get away from it. You got to separate yourself from it. Close the border. And he said, you guys can't close the border. You need our help. And you should be grateful that we're doing this. To which we both said, Operation Strong Safety in 2012, we did close the border under Rick Perry. It was Barack Obama that opened the border up again. We said, Dan, we need you to be an advocate for the state of Texas, not the federal government, but the state of Texas, to close the border. And he just blew us off. And, you know, it was a few days after that that President Trump got on board and said, this is not an immigration deal, it's an invasion bill. It sends billions to Ukraine and does not close our border. And Dan responded back by saying, it's the height of stupidity. And he was talking about Trump for the Republicans, conservative Republicans, to go against this bill. And that was just, I'd had enough at that point. I mean, there's only so much that we can do as a state when we're working against the federal government. And when we send people to Washington, D.C. from Texas, they should be advocating for Texas. And he was not.
So you made the decision almost 2 years ago that you would challenge Dan Crenshaw.
It wasn't a fait accompli that at that point that we had absolutely positively were going to do it. But, you know, if you ask me what started me down this path, that was it.
And so what issues do you think should be most important to people in the 2nd Congressional District? What are they telling you?
Flooding is a big thing. It's a huge issue. So when Harvey hit, one of my best friends lost everything in Kingwood. And in 2019, when we came back into session, I supported a bill and I was on appropriations, and we appropriated $1.6 billion towards flooding and flooding mitigation. We then passed another bill to ease any kind of TCEQ or any kind of administrative issues that would make it difficult for local entities to dredge the West Fork of the San Jacinto River. And yet by 2023, when we came back into session, nothing had been done. Nothing had been done. And so I led the charge on firing the executive director for the San Jacinto River Authority, because he was the one that flooded everybody out in the first place. He was the one that opened up the storm gates at 2 o'clock in the morning with no warning whatsoever, flooding homes off their foundations. And so, yeah, that was really, I think that's really critically important. And it's not just Kingwood. North Harris County saw a tremendous amount of flooding as well. A close friend of mine, Joel Perkins, Joel lost one of his restaurants, and multiple people lost their homes. This is an ongoing issue. And the problem is that, you know, as Dan Crenshaw notes, he brought $200 million back to this area for flood mitigation. Where is it? Where's the $200 million? Do we have a fund to dredge the San Jacinto River, West Fork? Do we have new floodgates? Do we have a new dam on Lake Houston? And the answer is no. All that money has come back from the federal government, and it's in a big slush fund for Rodney Ellis. We need people that are going to go and shake things up in the way things are done in D.C. and make sure that we actually get results back here.
So flooding is among the top issues.
It's a top issue, but it's that, and making sure too that, you know, Dan led the charge to bring thousands of people here with Sylvia Garcia. And these are people, some of these people have served honorably alongside our troops in Afghanistan. But what you don't do is you don't bring people to the United States that refuse to pledge allegiance to the United States and our way of life. Islam and followers of Islam, it's not coherent with American ideals. They do not want to assimilate. And so, yes, it's right to fly them out of Afghanistan, but fly them to Muslim-friendly countries like the UAE and Egypt. You don't bring them here to the United States. And that's where one of the ways where we fundamentally disagree. You only have to look at what's going on in Paris and London today, all of England, all of France. It's an invasion, and it's got to stop. It should not happen here in the United States.
And is that an issue for people who live in Montgomery County or in Kingwood?
Of course it is. Yeah, it absolutely is.
There are two other Republicans for the nomination in Congressional District 2, Martin Etwop, who has raised a little more than $7,000, and Nicholas Plum, who has raised less than $800, according to federal election filings. Now, the winner will face Democrat Sean Finney, who is running unopposed in his primary. When we come back, a story about your tax dollars from 13 Investigates. Welcome back to This Week in Texas. Imagine checking your bills only to find charges you don't recognize. Well, that's what two men in Montgomery County tell 13 Investigates happened with their Medicare statements. Our 13 Investigates team has reported about this before, but this time it appears to be a local company behind the issue. Here's Micah Hatfield.
Have you ever played the arcade game Whack-A-Mole? It's the ultimate game of frustration. As soon as you hit one mole and it goes down, another one pops right back up. For Mike Berger, it isn't about winning a high score. It's about stopping unrecognized charges on his Medicare statements from popping up.
If I just give up, yeah, they win.
Mike Berger isn't after points or tickets to pick out a bouncy ball as a prize. The prize for him is a Medicare statement free of charges that he classifies as fraud. But when he swung his mallet, he doesn't know if the mole is really going down.
I really want to know what's happening with my money. And Medicare is my money, in my opinion.
When he spots a mole or a charge he finds unfamiliar, he says he reviews his notes to ensure the charges don't line up with his medical history.
Yeah.
Then he reports it to Medicare. In the last year, Berger says he spotted at least 2 different companies springing up. One is a company with a Houston address billing for a new patient visit as far back as June of last year. We aren't naming the company because Medicare would not confirm to 13 Investigates that they're looking into it.
Now, how did they get my Medicare number? I don't know.
Let's see what
Rich Cutler, another resident of Montgomery County, is stuck in the same arcade game with that same company from Houston. His charges also as far back as June.
they were supposedly providing services to track my biometrics remotely and charging Medicare for those services.
The men's bills showed the charges weren't large as far as medical billing goes, less than $500 each time. By the time these men take a swing, the company has already banked the points. Medicare and their supplement insurance have already paid out.
Water's over the dam. Now I got to get a teaspoon and get the water back over the dam. Frustrating, but I won't stop.
They didn't approve it.
Maybe this sounds familiar. Back in November, we told you about another one popping up, Sunshine Senior Solutions out of South Florida, billing Medicare accounts for medical supplies like catheters that people told 13 Investigates they didn't need.
I would know if I had a catheter.
6 weeks before we aired that story, which was the end of October, we put in a request to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services for the number of complaints they received on Sunshine Senior Solutions. 2 weeks later, we put in the same request for complaints against the Houston-based company. We wanted to know how widespread the issue was across the U.S. Since we started following up with CMS on this story in late January, we finally got an answer on Sunshine Senior Solutions, saying they will not hand over the information. The completion date for our request on the local company is listed as undetermined. So we asked Medicare, what's the holdup? Are you moving this slowly to investigate the fraud itself? CMS told us fraud investigations are complex and require extensive fact-finding, legal review, and coordination across agencies, and say the length of an investigation can vary based on a number of factors to ensure actions taken by CMS and partner agencies are thorough, legally sound, and durable.
So you think they could tie it together somehow and tell me that yes, they're working on it, or no, we've determined it's not going there.
In November, CMS confirmed to 13 Investigates that they knocked out Sunshine Senior Solutions and the company was no longer enrolled in the Medicare program. But when we asked about the Houston company, CMS said, quote, "It is unable to comment on specific companies' enrollment details, complaint volumes, referral, or potential ongoing investigative activity," end quote. As recently as last week, 13 Investigates found the company still had 17 providers listed in Medicare's provider database. But since we started asking questions, they were removed.
How do you go back against them? That's what bothers me. And is somebody going to actually pay the price for it? I sure wish I'd find out and see that happen.
Cutler and Berger are still waiting for a game over for these companies. Until the federal government moves quicker with the mallet, the burden falls on the seniors.
If I keep whacking those moles, if I prevent a few $1,000s here and there, And if how many million that are on Medicare did that, that would be significant.
Berger says he hopes others will help keep track of what's popping up next. As far as the Houston business, we did try to track them down. We went by their listed address, but it was an empty office suite. Neighbors say someone had just moved out, but they didn't recall who it was. We did try phone numbers associated with the company, and they were all disconnected. Mike Hatfield, ABC 13 Eyewitness News.
Thanks to Micah and the 13 Investigates team for their report. That is it for This Week in Texas. Thanks for spending part of your week with us. Remember, early voting runs until February 27th, and then Election Day is March 3rd. Go vote and be kind to one another.